All right, guys, welcome to part two of dealing with dog injuries. In this part of the episode of this part two series, I'm going to be talking to my friend Alex about an injury that his dog recently has gone through during a training session. It's not an uncommon thing to happen with working dogs. I talked about this in part one, so if you haven't heard that, go to that previous episode. But now I'm going to be talking to Alex about some of the things that he's going through, and I'm going to give him some tips from my experience dealing with this with a working dog as well. So here's the interview. Hello.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, Will. How you doing, man?
Good, good. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you, man. It's been a while. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude. It's my pleasure, and it's a good topic. And it's a topic that I think would be very beneficial if we talked about, because obviously you're going through it. I've gone through it already, more than once.
Sure.
And this is your first. I know you've handled dogs in the military, right? Am I correct?
So I was exposed.
You were exposed to it. Gotcha.
Yeah. So all my deployments, kind of my interest in the whole field. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yep.
So just to kind of catch up, some of the audience, some of the people are going to be listening to this, and this is not live, by the way. I'm gonna put this in a recording,
Okay.
just so you know, just kind of put it, a little bit more, conversational and all that stuff.
Sure.
So just to kind of catch everybody up, Alex was a student of Star Marks back when I was an instructor. How many years ago was that, Alex?
I want to say that was 2015.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Been a few
Been a
years.
few years, yeah. And Alex did really well. And when you graduated, you got you went to another school, right? A canine, I believe.
That's correct. Yep. That's where I got my first mal. Yeah.
And that's where you got this dog that we're going to be talking about right now.
Yep. This is Zote. I have a younger
Okay.
mal, year-old. But yes, this is
Okay.
where I. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, and how old is his name is Zote?
Zote. Yep. He's
And
he's 6 years old.
6 years old. Okay, all right. And how long have you been doing PSA now?
So, well, we've been kind of preparing for it, on and off. I've been kind of relocating from Texas to Colorado, so I had a difficult time finding a club, as clubs have a waiting list.
Yeah.
But I did most of the preparatory work and kind of working him. We got our PDC in March.
Congratulations. Nice.
Thanks. Yeah, so we're just getting our feet wet into it, really. But yeah,
Nice.
it's been a great experience thus far. Challenging, but it's been fun.
Yeah, PSA is definitely. I mean, I would imagine any protection sport. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, it is a contact sport.
Yes.
It is a contact sport. You as a handler, definitely as a decoy, and even your dog, you're gonna get bruised.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna go home sore from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even handlers, as a handler, you're gonna take a beating every now and then. Things are gonna get pulled. There's just a lot going on, and it's more than just obedience, especially PSA. PSA is a very, just like, I'm not undermining any other protection sport, but in general, PSA, along with the other protection sports, it's a very physical sport.
Mm-hmm.
And PSA is the only sport where, aside from IGP, they do this in IGP too, but in PSA, the decoy is sprinting towards your dog.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that in Mondial ring. They don't do that in French ring.
Right.
And in IGP they do that, but they're doing it with the sleeve. So there's a more clear target on the sleeve versus the dog charging, the dog sprinting towards the decoy sprinting towards the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, it sounds hard. You, even when you're the handler, even if you're an experienced decoy, you have a pretty tough dog, which Zog's he's a pretty tough guy, right? I remember him. He's not a softie. He's a tough Malinois.
He's gnarly. I mean, when this dog's in drive, he's a monster. He's got, zero self-preservation. He's kind of like Russ.
Yes. I remember.
Yeah, he was young then. I think he was a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. So, you got a dog that is charging at full speed, and then
Mhm,
you have a decoy that is charging at full speed.
mhm,
That collision, it does take, obviously in PSA, in training, and definitely in trials. I also don't want to talk, I don't want to sound like PSA is an unsafe sport,
mhm,
but obviously the decoys are doing this in a safe manner. This is why in PSA we a lot of people that don't do PSA always think, why the left arm? It doesn't make sense. Why do you catch the dog in the left arm? And it's because we're sprinting at the dog and the dog is sprinting at us.
mhm,
So to make it more, to add a level of predictability, we want the dog to know, okay, I'm going to go to the left bicep. And as the decoy, I want to know he's coming to the left bicep. It just makes that collision a lot smoother and
mhm,
less, like the dog is hitting a wall. But
mhm,
even then, even when it's smooth, you've seen it, you've been doing PSA, you got your PDC.
mhm,
It's a contact sport. Every once in a while, things happen. Every once in a while, the decoy will fall. Every once in a while, the dog gets, a little bit jammed here and there. Shouldn't happen very often, but every once in a while it happens.
mhm.
And then we have these, little bits of soreness here and there. And now recently, I talked to you a few weeks ago. You were preparing for a trial, and a week before the trial, your dog had a slight injury, right?
Yeah, and I think it was after giving it some thought and just kind of going back over the videos, I think I have an accumulation of two things. Initially, one of the scenarios, I think it was the attack on motorist. He was in the back of the truck, and decoy ran by, and he decided to take a bite and kind of rolled out the truck, kind of funky.
Mm,
And it didn't seem like anything big. But then we did a courage test, and we spoke about that a little bit about, that can be detrimental. A dog only has so many um,
yeah,
repetitions that's such a, just like you explained, it's heavy contact, and especially
yeah,
with a, so,
yeah,
so yeah, so I think it was either one of the two or just an accumulation of both. But yeah, that's what we were doing. We were preparing. I was going for my ones, and um, uh, yeah, he got injured. So, and then it just ended up a little worse. We just got all of his results back.
oh
Radi-
shit, what happened?
so we initially thought it was just like a tendon in his bicep that was not necessarily torn, just agitated.
Mm-hmm.
Got sprays. It's hard to see through, that soft tissue injuries.
Yeah,
But this may be a little bit of a blessing in disguise. And we probably wouldn't have known, but we did find that he's got some elbow dysplasia on that same arm.
mm, mm,
So it's we're gonna it's a bilateral thing, so we don't know if it's happening in the other shoulder. But ultimately, he's got a torn tendon in between his ulta and his shoulder blade, which we believe that he can heal from as far as the shoulder goes. But his elbow is pretty thrashed from what it looks
yeah,
like. And yeah, so
yeah,
that yeah, so we don't really. I've kind of made the decision. It's kind of looking like I'm going to hang his hat. I don't
yeah.
want to have.
No,
Wanna,
dude, you got to do what you got to do.
sure, yeah, but that's kind of things happen, and this was one of the times, and this is great because I'm going to get educated in the sense of the medical side of the house. Like, we're going to do physical therapy. I'm going to figure out what kind of the anatomy looks like, and
Yeah.
ultimately, I want to kind of figure out how to um, and mitigate these types of injuries and what to do.
So
And what
I'm gonna give you some tips
Sure,
that have helped me,
sure.
and I'll go over some of the therapies that I'm doing with Rust.
Okay.
And also, to whoever's listening, this is also going to be helpful, I think. I've been down the same lane. The injuries that Russ has had have not been as extensive as the ones you just went over.
Mm-hmm.
But Russ is 8 years old, and Russ, and anybody who knows Russ will tell you Russ, no self-preservation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He'll if you throw that ball of a 10-story building, he'll go for the ball. He'll just go right through it. And now I have other dogs. I have a couple of other Malinois. They're not like that. They'll see, they'll evaluate, they'll assess, and they're
Sure.
still drivey, but they're not like Russ. Russ has literally gone into like a pile of cacti.
Oh crap! Right.
Just with his ball casually, just like I'm gonna go for my ball, and just no complaining, nothing. Just went through the pile of cacti,
Mm-hmm.
to the bundle or whatever it's called of cacti, and just I'm like, what are you doing? He just comes out all casual with the ball in his mouth, and I'm having to pull thorns that were deep in his side. I'm pulling it out, and
That's
I'm like, this dog has like, he doesn't give a shit. He'll just
right.
go,
Mm-hmm.
So, and at 8 years of age, and kind of like your dog 6 years old, what happens, and I'm willing to bet this is probably what happened with your dog. What probably happened was, because he's very intense, and this is, kind of your first experience with a sport dog.
Mm-hmm.
What probably happened is your dog over the years has been having these tiny little micro tears
Mm-hmm.
that he hasn't really been complaining about.
Right.
Okay. That's probably what happened. And it's just like you and I, we do when we're younger, we are invincible. We are indestructible.
Mm.
And we don't feel these aches and pains until, we start to get a little bit older.
Right.
And with our dogs, it's the same exact way. They start to have, these little aches and pains, these tiny micro tears, and of course they are full of piss and vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't complain, and because they don't complain, we don't see it. And so what ends up happening is these little micro tears go unchecked until they're about 5-6 years old, and that's when Rust also started to notice some things slightly different about Rust. When he was about 6 years old, 7 years old, I started to notice that. And so what happens is all these little micro tears, they compound, they accumulate, and then they start to creep up on them when they're not young anymore.
Right.
And then you start to see it. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things that, obviously, this is hindsight, right? We can't go back in time and go, well, I need to be more aware of these things. Right. But what we do is we learn from these. And so here's some of the things that have helped me. One of the things that I do with Rust is I take him to a chiropractor regularly. Oh, and this is something that I wasn't even aware of until I had Rust. Years into having Rust is when he was about 5 that I started to hear about, oh yeah, there are chiropractors for animals.
Sure.
That was news to me. Okay. And I also started going to a chiropractor. So I started to hear the side of the medical side of the athleticism that people and animals go through. And it all makes sense. So I started doing chiropractic care on a regular basis for Rust. I also was doing acupuncture because that's also something that can be done for dogs. And I used to always think, well, you go to a chiropractor when you're messed up. You go to a chiropractor when you're not doing well. But it turns out that this is something that can be implemented into the dog as maintenance and also as preventative. Because what happens is, our dogs, if you look at a dog, right, your protection dogs, your sport dogs, yes, they were bred and hardwired to run and sprint and do crazy things. But all of these movements that they do, and if you decoy, this also applies to you. All these movements that you do, right? All these, the way that you're as a dog, the way the dog is biting, right? It's usually somewhat uneven. And if you think about this, like in PSA, where do we catch the dogs? On the left arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the left arm. So as
Yep.
a decoy, the impact as a decoy that you're getting constantly every week is on the left side of your body.
Right.
It's not like one catch you're taking on the left and the next catch you're taking on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so what happens is all of this impact on one side of your body repeatedly starts to create some tension around your joints.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So your body starts to now overcompensate.
That makes total sense. Yep.
And all of this tension that forms up around your joints, this can also now create some tension that on an accumulated basis can turn into a big injury. And the same thing applies to dogs. When you look at a dog biting on the left shoulder, right? If you look at their bodies, watch a dog lunging for the left shoulder and grabbing the left bicep.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see their body, everything about their body, the curvature of their spine,
right.
the twisting of the neck, right? It's aligned that way to catch the decoy on the left shoulder, on the left bicep of that decoy. So that means just like we are repeatedly as decoys getting impact on one side of our body, when the dog is also making contact repeatedly on that same side, it also creates some of that unevenness on the dog as well. So over a period of time, all this creates tension and unevenness on the dog's structure as well. And this is when these little micro tears and the tension starts to compound and can make injuries like this, like what your dog and my dog have experienced, even worse. So this is why maintenance is as important, if not even more important than going after the dog has the injury. And again, this is something that I learned with Rust. And it's something I'm very, very aware of. So that's one thing, chiropractic care, and even if you never put Zod back in the field, he's only 6 years old. He's not, just because you retire him from PSA, it doesn't mean that he's going to go, okay, I'm just going to sit back and relax.
Right.
Dude, he's got plenty of years ahead of him, being a crazy Malinois.
Right. Yeah. And, looking back on it, it's, I was young and naive in the sense, and I wish I would have known this. And this is great for, new handlers and new teams. So I wish I would have heard this, years ago, but that's okay. It was a learning experience, and I'm super bummed out about it because I personally, and I'm sure everybody does with their own dog, but I feel like this dog he's a dime a dozen, man. And we were prepared to crush it. And so, but yes, this is all good stuff, and I would have done these things to help prevent, and just been a little more aware of how these things work. But yes, this is all great stuff. And with your experience, do you feel like Russ is better in the sense, or are you more comfortable with working stage?
So what I'm doing with Russ is this is another thing that you're going to experience. And, I've experienced it with Russ. Russ has had about a total of about a year of time off due to injuries, We had one time, it happened about a couple of years ago, maybe about a year and a half ago. We're just playing, we're just doing a training session, no bite work, just throwing the ball. And one of those, he went for the ball and he jammed one of his legs. And he whined, and I've never heard him whine after an impact like that. This time he whined, and then he was out for like 6 months. He was limping for like just several months, and we did the X-rays, the ultrasound. That's when I dove really deep into this stuff. But here's the thing that happened, right? And you're likely to experience this with Zod if you don't do some things to mitigate that boredom, which will happen. So what started to happen to Russ, every time he takes a little bit of a break where he doesn't do PSA on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
What ends up happening is first he'll get bored, and he just doesn't do much. He's just bored.
Right.
But then he starts to get violent
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't have that outlet.
Right.
And not like uncontrollable, and he start biting anybody, but I see he starts to become more irritable,
Mm-hmm.
and he becomes more like, like I'll give you an example. This is the most recent injury he had was about 4 months ago, and now he's just starting to recover. But during those 4 months, what happened was I could see he was pent up. And one of those, I was doing a training session with him, very light. He was someplace. He was very agitated. He was just someplace. My wife was working her dog, and Russ is just kind of waiting. We've done this a bunch of times before. This doesn't normally send him over the edge, but this time he's just on place, super irritated. And suddenly, I'm telling him, hey, knock it off, just be quiet and be on place. And he was like, no, like if he could talk, it probably would have been like, no, fuck you.
Right.
It was one of those, and he lunged at me, just full on. He was like, fuck you. It's like all of this pent up, energy and violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of not doing anything. Dude, he loves to bite.
Right.
Like in sport work, I'm not talking like he's an aggressive dog, but in sport work, you've seen him. He fucking loves it. It is the one thing that he absolutely loves.
Yeah, I get it 100%. Yeah.
And so he hadn't done that for like months.
Mm-hmm.
I was just because I was taking it easy on him. He was just going for little walks, spending a lot of time just laying down, and just this kind of this really just got to him, and he just lunged. He was like, no, fuck. He was like full on fuck you, right? So we had our little come to Jesus meeting. And then after that he was fine, right? But I could tell he's like, I'm just so fucking, just it's like he's having withdrawals, right? So now we just started doing it back again. We started getting into it again. And now I'm a lot more cautious. Like, he's 8 years old now, and we are training for the twos, and the twos have a lot of, they have a lot more bite scenarios that I have to practice for. So, the most recent injury he had, which, put him out for about 4 months, that was when we were working for the twos. And it was just during a routine exercise. It wasn't even anything crazy. There was no props involved. It was just during a flea bite. He kind of slipped off that flea bite. And when he landed, which he slipped off occasionally, but this time he slipped off and he landed. He landed, and he kind of landed wrong on one of his paws, and that made him. I mean, he kept going. He kept biting afterwards, but his paw was in the air. So I was like, okay, we'll see how it goes. Now, obviously, I finished the training session. The next day, he's limping. The following day, he's limping, and the following day, he's limping. I was like, oh shit, this is more serious than I think.
Right.
So that whole thing, put him out for a while. But the way I'm doing it now is, now that he's starting to come back into the rotation, now I'm starting to bring him back into training. I'm taking it super, super easy. And the way I'm looking at it is, I could retire him, but like, he still acts like he's 3.
Right.
He doesn't act like he's 8 years old. Like, I've seen some dogs, and I'm sure you have too, that are 8 and they look old.
Right.
They act old. Russ is not like that at all. He still acts like this young dog that is full of piss and vinegar. So if I retire him, it will probably be like the cruelest thing I could do to him, to tell him, you're not doing this one thing that you love to do, that you were bred to do.
Right.
So what we're doing is, we're doing it like in like baby steps. So instead of doing long scents, we're doing these very short scents.
Okay.
Instead of me throwing him the ball to reward him, I kind of hand him the ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm doing a bunch of little things like that. And I know, again, I know that even when he's not limping, even when he's not whining, I know he's probably has some soreness here and there.
Right.
So I'm all
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what makes me nervous. He's going to act like he's okay. Then we get back on the ball game, and then he re-injures himself.
Yes.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the other thing too, the other thing that I've learned from my veterinarian, which is she's the one who does the chiropractic care and the acupuncture for
Mm-hmm.
rust. I also heard about cold laser therapy. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't. That's new. What's that? What's that about?
So cold laser therapy is not a lot, but some hospitals use it in a post surgery
Okay.
therapy, which
Mm-hmm.
basically there's some technicality that goes into it. Basically, it's a laser. It's a machine has a laser, and it's called cold laser because when you put it up to the skin, I mean, people use it. It's made for people. When you put it against your skin, there is no heat. But the laser, the way that it works is it goes deep into the cells, and it kind of like awakens the cells, reactivates the mitochondria, and it promotes faster healing. And I've heard a lot of good things about it. Just to give you a quick anecdote,
Sure.
I have a client who's a dentist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of his colleagues is also a dentist, and well, his friend, the dentist, he was in an accident where he lost use of one of his hands. So one of his hands got really messed up.
Okay.
So
Uh-huh.
he went to the doctor, and the doctor told him we have to do surgery, and we're talking about 3 months out at least of recovery time, at least. So
Okay.
the guy's a dentist, so he goes, no,
That,
I'm gonna get a second opinion. So he went to another doctor. The other doctor told him the same thing. We have to do surgery, and we're looking at about 3 months minimum of recovery before you can start using both your hands again. He got a third opinion, and the third opinion told him the same thing. So what he did is he bought a laser. This is not like, this is my client's friend. It's not like I heard some guy somewhere that I don't know. This is my client's friend. My client's a dentist. His friend told me about this. I'm sorry, he told me about his friend. And so his friend got a cold laser, and he applied it like every day on his injured hand. He didn't do the surgery. He just applied the cold laser every day on his hand. And I think he told me after about 2 or 3 weeks, he had full use of his hands just with the cold laser.
wow.
Yeah. So I also asked my chiropractor. I was like, hey, because he doesn't have a cold laser, right? He doesn't do that. And so I asked him, have you heard of the cold laser? Because I wanted to do my research. I was like, have you heard of the cold laser? He
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, that's good stuff. There are some clinics that do it. He started filling me in on the details of the cold laser. And so he's like, no, that's not trash. It's not hogwash. It's real. And it does have a nice long track record of working. So I was like, okay, so far I got 2 people telling me that it's good stuff. So my chiropractor, same thing. And then I started looking into cold lasers, right? And you can find a cold laser on Amazon for like $100, but obviously they're probably not good. So I,
Right.
I asked my chiropractor, um, where would one get a cold laser that is medical grade, not one from Amazon, but one like if you were to order one, where would you order it from? So he gave me their contact info. I talked to them, and you can buy cold laser sessions. There are veterinarians that have cold lasers where you could pay for weekly sessions. You
Okay.
could also rent them, and I did that. I did rent it, and I did a cold laser session at the veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I just want to buy one. So I spent a little bit of money. They are expensive. They range from on the lower end, they're about $3,000.
Okay.
They can that's the lower end, right? Not like if you go to Amazon, you're gonna see some that are for like, that go for like $100. They're probably not good.
Right,
But like
right.
medical grade on the lower end, they're like, $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
The one I got is 5,000,
Okay.
and they can go as high as like $35,000. Right, so it can be pretty expensive. So that's another thing that I've been doing with Rust as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is hyperbaric tanks. They're called hyperbaric tanks. This you can't buy. This is like you have to go to a place, and it's an actual tank where the veterinarian or therapist can put you if it's for you, or they also do it for animals.
Okay.
And that's a whole nother thing that I've not dabbled in. But there's just a whole field of recovery and therapy, physical therapy, that just it's insane. And I've never heard about any of these until I had Rust.
Right. Right.
It's crazy. It's
These are
crazy.
crazy, man. I definitely have some questions for my vet. I just hooked up a consultation for Zoe at a physical therapist. They have some pretty cool stuff. I mean, I've heard of like water therapy, but they got like underwater treadmills and so on.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about that, but these sound interesting. And I'm gonna do my research on these things. Yeah, and so I appreciate all your input on this, Will. I mean, bro, I would have never known any of this without Zoe being hurt as well. It's kind of a double-edged sword. But
Yeah.
preparing my younger mouth to kind of step up to the bat. These are all great things that I can kind of help.
No problem. It's my pleasure. My
Right.
pleasure.
Thank you, man.
And I want to mention a few things again. Just you have a young dog. This I'm going to give you some tips on this too. And obviously, I know you've learned a lot from Zod and from the injury that he's had.
Mm-hmm.
But here's one thing that I'm going to tell you with your young dog. Okay, and this is again for people who have young dogs, people that are getting a dog soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to first tell you one thing that I learned from Jonathan Katz. Jonathan Katz, a big name in PSA. And one of the things that Jonathan Katz said to me, and I said this to you too, every dog, every protection dog, right? And we're going to talk about PSA specifically. Every PSA dog has a certain number of courage tests.
Right. Yep.
Every dog, if you're doing PSA, every dog has a certain number of courage tests.
Right.
Because courage tests are freaking hard. I mean, it's full head-on impact.
Right.
So every time that you practice these, think of it as you're taking a courage test off your dog's list.
Right.
You have to be very, 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 very cautious with the decoys that help you, because courage tests are difficult. The guy's not just standing there and catching the dog.
Right.
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 And also with other things, like, it's maybe not even courage tests. Like if your dog, jumps out of the balcony, right? Your dog just is playing and he runs into a tree. That running into a tree could have potentially taken 3 courage tests off your dog's list.
It's a great way of putting that, man. That's a great way.
It really is. It really is. So that's one, especially with young dogs, right? Their bones are their bones are growing. Their growth plates are not fully fused. These are things that we have to be very, very careful with. I never want to do any crazy shit with puppies, right? Like I don't want to look cool and swing puppies around the air because they're so young, right? Don't want to do anything crazy like that. The other thing too is when you work with these young dogs, to me, my priority is let's teach them how to think first. Let's do some obedience. Let's do some brain thinking exercises that don't involve biting. And then as they get more mature, as they get stronger, then teach them the power that they have. Right. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do bite work with them when they're young.
Right.
But, that's one thing. Teach them how to think when they're young. Teach them how to do all of that before you unleash the freaking beast that they have.
Right.
When you freaking unleash the beast too young, then that's when they become crazy. That's when they the thinking kind of goes to the side a little bit. Right. So that would be my advice to you with your young dog, and to anybody that either has a young dog or they're about to get a young dog, a puppy. Just keep in mind your dog only has so many courage tests, and you have to be very, very careful with your dog, because when they're young, they're not going to tell you they're hurt. They don't tell you that until they're older, as you know and as I know.
Right. Hey, just to touch on that a little bit, man, that's that's awesome. I mean, you knew Zoe just a little bit. He was 8 months to a year old, and he was gassed. I mean, he was pedal to the floor each time, and I think if I would have just kind of geared him back and taught him how to think, that's a really good way of putting it, man. I wouldn't have had such conflict with him. I had to rebuild my relationship with him, especially on his out, and so it was a lot of conflict because all he wanted to do was bite. Now, I don't know how that has to do with genetics, but I think it would have been super helpful just to kind of gear back and kind of prioritize my my objectives with him. So that's nicely put, Will. And I'm going to apply all of these things and do some research, man. This is good stuff.
We learn from these painful lessons. I mean, you learn a lot from this, from this injury, and it sucks that it takes him, getting retired at a young age. But like you said, it's better that it happened in a training session than an event where there's less control. Right, because then the injury could be even worse, and that's the thing. So a lot of times these things that happen, they happen in training sessions. Dude, I've heard of dogs in French ring that have died on the field just from competitions, just broken their necks. It's not an unheard of phenomena for dogs to have really bad injuries and occasionally just completely kick it over during a trial. So if we look at it that way, at least we're lucky. We're just talking about injuries during training sessions.
Right.
Well, all right, man. I hope that you got a lot out of this conversation. Thank you for joining me and bouncing back and forth on this topic. I think it's a great topic, and I think a lot of people are gonna benefit from our conversation.
Well, I surely have, Will. I got a page of notes here, man. So
cool, man. Cool.
So thank you for that. And I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely.
And good luck with Russ, man. Are you guys preparing to get your twos here this year? Or
yeah, I'm hosting a trial, as you know, on October 1st and 2nd. So I got Rust on the roster.
Nice.
So hopefully he doesn't fuck himself up before then, but all right, man.
Fingers crossed. Thanks again, brother. I appreciate it, man.
All right. Take care. Bye.